Hey you guys, and welcome to my channel. Are you habitually saying I'm sorry when you haven't even done anything wrong? When you don't even know what the problem is? Are you habitually saying I'm sorry for random things? Or do you know someone who has these patterns? Well, today we're going to talk about that because, this is very toxic, guys. So I'm hoping that by the end of this video, you guys have been given a lot of perceptions to help you understand this. And that you can intercept yourself if you're the one doing this, or you could share the information with people that you know that could benefit from hearing this. Or maybe you're just understanding psychology here, and this would just be an informative video for you. I mean, it's all good no matter what, right? All right, because this is going to be all about increasing our emotional maturity. So if you like the idea of that, make sure you hit that like button and you hit the subscribe button and the bell, guys, because I do upload videos quite frequently, and there's over 600 videos here already on the channel to give you additional content on increasing your emotional maturity, understanding toxic relationships, doing shadow work, or basically self-improvement within yourself. And these are all wonderful things because they definitely don't teach it in school. Feel free to share these videos, and it's a great way to support the channel is to always like and leave a comment. All right. With all of that being said, let's get back on the topic of I'm sorry. As we're raised as children, most of us anyway, are taught that saying I'm sorry is polite, it's kind, it's showing manners. And that's true. It really is when it's being used in a proper manner. But in this video, we're going to talk about using it in a toxic way that is basically counterproductive. And a lot of times we don't have the self-awareness or, the emotional maturity to really understand what's actually going on a conscious level and on a subconscious level. All right. So I'm going to talk about some of those things now. When you're perpetually saying I'm sorry, you're subconsciously apologizing for yourself. When you're doing it out of context, when you're doing it when you haven't done anything wrong, when you're doing it merely because you were being assertive or expressing your opinions or your feelings, when you're doing it just to be filling a silence or an awkward void, when you're doing it because you want to be a people pleaser, and there's a whole lot more reasons that we're going to get into as the video continues. But subconsciously, you're apologizing for yourself. And that means somewhere along the line, a seed was planted that there's something very wrong about you. And that seed has been watered enough to where you believe that. So when you feel a hint of any conflict, and it becomes to feel awkward, you intercept it by saying, I'm sorry. You automatically are taking the accountability for what's going on. All right. So, we're going to talk about that a little further down the list. But I just want to at least get to this number one, that you're subconsciously apologizing for yourself. So that obviously can lead to other issues, meaning this person may have, technically low self-esteem, low self-worth, low self-value, low self-confidence. All of this is going to be running together. All right, so subconsciously apologizing for yourself. Now, on the flip side, obviously, I want you to be able to be yourself, to be able to be an individual, to be able to say we can agree to disagree. You don't have to be sorry for, liking something that they don't like, for wanting something that they don't want. It's okay. You're two different people. All right, so let's go ahead down my list. The next thing that I have is when you're perpetually saying I'm sorry, is actually excusing them. It's providing further miscommunication because there's already something brimming or something brewing, if you will, that needs to be addressed, and then that elephant gets bigger and bigger over time. And we think that by saying I'm sorry, it's nipping something in the bud, but it's not. It's not, because it's not healthy conflict resolution. Keyword resolution. So we're having the resolution to something, we're finding the answer to, or the solution to the conflict. But by perpetually saying I'm sorry is actually validating the wrongs. It's excusing them. It's reinforcing it. It's continuing the issue. You took the blame, or you're basically taking the blame. And then it never ends, because we're not specifically addressing the issue here. You're just saying I'm sorry, and it's basically brushing over it. This doesn't keep the peace. It's not nipping things in the bud. And if anything, your internal peace is going to dissipate even further, or it's going to lessen. And then the external piece is going to keep coming back around in a circle at that point, because it still hasn't been addressed. And toxic people, they thrive off of this, getting you to take accountability. It allows them to continue to perpetuate their behaviors as well. And then if they're narcissistic, they remain feeling superiority. Yeah. They're going to remain feeling superior to you, because you're always sorry. Okay. Now, the next part that I want to bring up here is, a lot of times it's through a passive aggressive nature. You're saying I'm sorry to trigger or motivate the other person to say I'm sorry. But guess what? You saying I'm sorry is definitely not going to guarantee that a toxic person specifically is going to say I'm sorry back to you. Okay, they just may not take that hint, guys. They may not take that hint and apologize back. So you're setting yourself up to feel even more sorry, because now you're going to be that sacrificial lamb. You're taking the fall for the situation. And then guess what? A toxic person is just going to let you. They're not going to join in and say, well, you know what? I'm sorry for doing do. Well, you know what? Well, I guess I shouldn't have done this too. They're not going to have that emotional maturity. All right. So we don't want to cover over conflict, because our emotional maturity doesn't feel confident and comfortable and confronting. Okay. Because when you're saying I'm sorry, you're running away from the situation, and you're actually allowing the other person to run away. And if they're toxic, they're going to take that opportunity to run away, guys. All right. So, let's talk about what saying I'm sorry means. And we talked about the regret, the repentance, and the remorse. So in a healthy situation, we want the person to be able to acknowledge, to be able to accept, to be able to express. This is them saying that I'm sorry. And then this is a big one, for them to be able to amend the relationship, right? Because if you took a loss, and that loss didn't have to be financial, if they hurt your feelings, or if it was something, very toxic that they were doing that hurt you on some level, they can make amends for that. And then either you guys will reconcile the relationship versus continuing to damage it by you taking that accountability and shimmying over things just to not have that discomfort, only to perpetually keep yourself in a discomfort. So either you reconcile the situation, you guys are able to move forward, or, the relationship can dissolve in a healthy manner, but the person has expressed and amended. But we all know, just because someone is sorry for something doesn't mean that we have to continue to be in that relationship, okay? Or give them access to us. Because sometimes these sorries are for basically breaking your trust. All right. So I want you guys to begin to walk away from these empty apologies. And see where they have no real merit for you. And by doing so, you'll give the opposite party the opportunity to recover their integrity or character, or uncover the lack of integrity and character. I want you to see where saying I'm sorry is unnecessary and it's actually avoidable. Because the whole idea of my channel, guys, is to empower you. And when you are constantly saying I'm sorry, this is disempowering, guys. It's very disempowering for all these reasons that I just talked about and then some. All right, so let's talk about the wrong thinking, because deep-rooted in saying I'm sorry is some wrong thinking. And the first part we already mentioned very early on, and that's what we were talking about, subconsciously feeling like there's something wrong with you. And you may not even have realized it today, like, wow, yeah, I really do have that running theme with myself. All right. And it's one of the ways that it's playing out is by you perpetually saying, I'm sorry. Now, here's the other thing, are the other wrong ways of thinking. I want you to understand that you can be polite without apologizing. You can still be polite. Because a lot of times, that's the barrier. You don't know how to be polite. Use other words. Okay? You can be polite without apologizing, guys. And here's the other thing, and this is especially for my empaths out there. You can demonstrate compassion and empathy without saying I'm sorry for stuff that you haven't done. You can still demonstrate compassion and empathy. I really want you guys to understand that. All right, so let's just talk about this a little further here. This over apologizing, because that's in essence what you're doing at that point. You're over apologizing, and people can see this. So here is the list that I made of the verses, like you're doing this versus that. When you're over apologizing, guys, we're talking about disempowering, like I just said, versus empowering. We're talking about passive aggressive versus direct and assertive. We're talking about downplaying and minimizing versus acknowledging. We're talking about perpetuating, fostering, reinforcing the toxicity versus healthy conflict resolution. We're talking about apologizing for self versus owning individuality. We're talking about lying versus truth and reality. And we're talking about interrupting the miscommunication and conflict versus allowing for the resolve and the resolution. That's a short list that I came up here. What you're intercepting when you're over apologizing are basically apologizing for things that you have not even done, apologizing for other people's wrongs, taking the accountability. All right. And like I said, it's okay if they don't agree. There's different strokes for different folks. There's another wrong thinking there. Oh, I want everyone to like me. I don't want anyone to see me in a bad light. Well, that's not realistic in this world. You can do your best. You can give someone your last and they can still find a fault with you. We've seen that with the narcissist, because they're looking through their lens of their eyes, and that's sculpted by any toxicity they may or may not have in them. All right. But it's not your responsibility to try to get every person you've ever met in your life to see your goodness or to see you as this great person. Okay. It's just not realistic, guys. It's just not realistic. And that's okay. Because like I said, everybody's at a different development. Everybody has, is different in their journey, their emotional maturity. And then there are the people who are just having a lot of brokenness and toxicity. It's okay if they don't see it. We shouldn't even expect them to see it. And we should have the emotional maturity to not waste our energy to try to twist an arm for them to see that. Okay? So let's talk about some phrases that we can change here now. Now that we've talked about why this is toxic and, what we're avoiding and running from and some of the wrong thoughts. What are some literal things that you can say instead of something else? Instead of saying that I'm sorry, basically. You could say, thank you for listening, instead of, sorry, I'm just rumbling, or sorry for my big mouth, sorry, I'm always talking, and, that's disempowering. Just say, thank you for listening. Okay. You could say, thank you for understanding, versus, I'm sorry if I inconvenienced you. I'm sorry if you had to go out of the way. I'm sorry if it was a delay for you. I'm sorry for da-da-da-da-da. That's disempowering. Just say, thank you for understanding. You can say, pardon me, or you could say, excuse or pardon me, instead of, sorry, do you have a minute? And then you could just think about this in like a whole lot of other situations. You don't have to say stuff like, I'm sorry you feel that way. You could just provide the opportunity. Hi, is there anything that you would like to talk about? Or, I'm feeling an energy. Is there anything that you would like to address? Give them the opportunity. Okay? So, the main thing is you only reserve I'm sorry for a real I'm sorry, for when you've really actually done something wrong that you want to acknowledge, accept, express, amend, and reconcile. Okay? Now, this is a sidebar. And my recommendation, if you feel like you are interacting with a narcissist, there's exceptions to all the rules here. And this is the one time when I will tell you not to say I'm sorry. And some of you may disagree with that. But due to the nature of how they operate and what they would do with that I'm sorry, it's disempowering to you to say I'm sorry to them. Okay? So never feel like you have to apologize to a narcissist. That is my exception to the rules here. And I've made a video about that. I'm going to find it and tag it to the end of this for those of you who like to watch that. And I get into my reasons for that. But they will not see it as this dutiful, positive thing. They will become further toxic as a result. They will use that to further manipulate, try to further manipulate anyway, the situation and victimize themselves. Okay. That's just a little on the surface. But if you watch my video, I get a lot more into that. Okay, guys. All right. So, I hope that this video is helping someone start to address this pattern within them. And as you begin to do your shadow work on yourself, if you're that perpetual person that's always saying, I'm sorry, you'll be able to catch yourself when you're doing it. All right. And then there are some questions that you could actually ask yourself when you feel that knee jerk about to happen. And you could say, was this even warranted? Do you even mean this? Or are you just trying to fill a void, fill a silence, or run away from conflict resolution? You can ask yourself those 3 questions to see if you really should be saying, I'm sorry for anything. And then we'll add the 4th one, of course, for that exception. Are they a narcissist? By default, you're not going to be saying I'm sorry to them if you take my advice anyway. All right, guys. So I hope this video resonated with someone. Feel free to hit that like button. Like I said in the beginning, Subscribe and hit that bell. I have a lot of videos on this channel to increase emotional maturity. Take what you can to help you on your journey. I have a free support group, guys, over on Facebook for survivors of narcissistic abuse. Just inbox me and let me know that you're a survivor. I will be making a podcast, guys. I'm in the works of that, and I'm really excited about that. It's going to be available on iTunes. I'll let you know when that is up and going, but I just wanted to go ahead and begin planting the seeds and my subscribers here on YouTube to know about that and what's going to be coming. So if you are into podcasts and listening to that on iTunes, that's something to be looking forward to. All right. The next thing, guys, is I do one-on-one coaching. You can go on my website, lakiacrawford.com, to book your personal session with me. I do voice calls, FaceTimes, and email coaching, guys. If you want an appointment time that is not available on my website, simply email CoachLakia@gmail.com and we can figure that out. I've dealt with people from many countries and all different kinds of time zones. I'm on Eastern time zone myself here in America, just so you know. But I'm very flexible, guys. I'm very flexible. This is what I do full time. All right. You can find there's all type of packages there for yourself. And while you're on the website, you can find out about my Patreon, a monthly membership to support my cause and the work that I do here, and to get some perks back, guys. So find a monthly membership and get some perks back. And thank you for all of your support, right? On my website, you can also find out about my other products, the books that I've written, and the No Narc merchandise, cute hats and t-shirts, coffee mugs, bumper stickers, mouse pads, all types of stuff. You can make your statement against narcissistic abuse and have fun with your fashion, guys. All right. And with that being said, guys, what do I say at the end of all of my videos? Never give up on yourself. Keep doing the work. And until next time, please take care.